Hello everyone, my name is Zoe and my book of choice was Pancakes by Eric Carle. The last book that I did was also by Eric Carle. That was The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and he's also very famous for Brown Bear, What Do You See? And I find that all of his books kind of have a central idea in common of teaching kids real things but in a very fun way. I think this is a classic story that relays a strong plot with fun illustrations that pair with it. And by the end of this presentation, we'll have covered the main points of the book and what makes it stand out in its genre, and you will then also know how to make a pancake from scratch. So for the summary of the plot, the story begins with a little boy named Jack who wakes up very hungry and craves pancakes for breakfast. So his mother basically tells him they're not just going to appear on the plate, you're going to have to go get the ingredients yourself. So Jack then sets off on a journey. So he first goes to the fields to help cut wheat down and give them to the miller to grind into flour. He next goes to milk a cow to gather milk for his pancake, and then he has to turn it by hand into fresh butter for his pancake. And then he has to collect an egg from a hen on his farm. And after collecting all of his ingredients, his mother instructs him to gather firewood as well to cook the pancake. And then finally he picks jam to go with his pancake after he prepares it with the help of his mother. So each of these steps show how food actually comes from farms, natural resources, animals that require lots of effort and lots of patience, and they don't just come from a store. At the end, after all of his hard work, Jack's mother teaches him how to make one big pancake by mixing all of the ingredients together and pouring them into the firewood lit pan. So it's a simple story, but it teaches kids the hidden process, if you will, behind something so simple as breakfast and hard work, and it also teaches them not to take the little things for granted. For the visuals, I think that one of the best parts of the book is the art, because Eric Carle has he does something different with his books where he does like a collage style. So he paints sheets of tissue paper in bright colors, he cuts them into shapes and then layers them to make different pictures. It's kind of giving like mosaic, if you will. It's giving abstract, but I think it's unique. And you can just tell that in this story, like they're not sharp, like stimulating images. Like they look like they could have been made from a child. Like you can see right here too. Just things like that. So the illustrations in Pancakes are very big, bold, colorful, and you'll see that golden wheat swaying in a field. Like you'll see a speckled hen sitting proud, frying pan sizzling with butter, and these visuals grab children's attention, and they also help explain each step in the process. I think that this book is practically a recipe guide in picture form, which I think is helpful even for adults. But the colors are also very primary centered, with very much reds, blues, yellows to display the action going on in the story. As the book progresses, the last page shows the pancake fully to enhance the ending of the hard work Jack had to dedicate to his pancake. Kind of gives like a satisfaction at the end, if you will, like we finally completed something, here it is. If I were reading this story out loud to a class, I would definitely hold up each page very slowly, because the visuals, especially in the beginning, tell just as much of the story as the words do, since some students might not even know what a cow looks like, or what a mill is, or flour, or a chicken. I think that these visuals will help depict those curiosities, especially if they're not familiar with, like I grew up in Fresno, so I'm familiar with agriculture, but some kids might not be, so I think that those visuals will help them in understanding the story. For the genre, this book falls into realistic fiction. Although it is a children's book, it encompasses the very real process of what hardworking people have to do every single day. Since there's no sort of magic or talking animals, nothing really imaginary, it makes it even more educational because it leaves such little room for imagination. It kind of just gives it all to you. I think that having the animals make their real sounds in the story, like the cow was mooing, there was a rooster, doing the practical wake up in the morning, like all of the sounds are in the book. And I think that this will help students recognize that they can see the story in real life near their homes if they are somewhere where there are animals based. A direct quote, my favorite quote was at the end of the quote on the last page. I'll show you. It's this quote. So you can see Jack, he's taking a bite of his pancake after all of his hard work, and he says, "Oh mama, I know what to do now." I think that this shows that at the end he's learned a very valuable life lesson through the simple effort of making breakfast. He showed that hard work and effort go hand in hand together. I think that it also reflects appreciation, since Jack now realizes that pancakes don't just appear magically on a plate. They take many steps and a lot of time, which he's now mastered, to make him more independent and capable. Which is also good to teach kids not to just rely on your parents, but to be active and to be interactive with what you want to learn in order to grow. I think this is a good way to show kids that you can also do anything with your own determination. For strengths and weaknesses, I think that one strength is that the story makes a kind of complicated process very easy to understand with images alongside the words. It breaks down what farming, milling, cooking looks like in a way that students will be able to understand very easily. The language is also very clear and repetitive in a way that supports literacy and language for mainly students, I would say preschool through first, maybe second grade. A weakness might be that for older kids, it might not be the best because it is step by step. It might be a little bit slower if kids at that age level are reading more advanced. But children today, or children that aren't raised in a place with agriculture, won't comprehend as quickly as those who are familiar with animals and farms. But I don't really see that as a weakness necessarily. I see that that can be a strength for teachers to inform and to educate for those who aren't familiar with agriculture. So I don't really think there is a designated weakness. For classroom use, I personally would use this to my fullest. I would have kids making pancakes of their own if I could. I can see myself having a griddle in the class and helping them gather the ingredients from different stations. Mixing the ingredients I think would be good, especially for sensory and like motor skills. I think that if cooking was not available though, then I could give kids paper cutouts of what ingredients they could put in their pancake, and I would also like to see how they would create them. So maybe even a little bit of like misleading ingredients, like something silly, just to see what they think would work and what wouldn't work. But that would have to represent, you know, real things like animals or resources, things that are useful in everyday. But yeah, that was Pancakes by Eric Carle.